I just hit record, so we're gonna get started. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining today's session, The Why, Motivating and Evaluating Students in Campus Recreation. I'd like to thank Life Fitness for connecting PERSA with Jason. Jason was a former member of PERSA in the mid to late 2000s at Temple University. So, thank you again to Life Fitness. At this point in time, it's my pleasure to introduce Jason Townsend, Associate Director at Mississippi State.
Guys, I appreciate it. Yeah, Temple, I'd say Temple and Philly holds a special place in my heart. I always think of it as family. I still talk to a lot of student workers there. I think there were probably a few hundred that came through when I was at Temple, just hiring, rehiring, training. So I think that we can all say that in this group, even somebody from Life Fitness, you see what we do in campus recreation. It has definitely changed from the days of the old PE roll out the ball concept to where it's about multi-million-dollar facilities, and it is a business, but we can't, like I named this the why, and we can't forget what it is that we do. And we're offering these incredible programs to the patrons that walk through the door. But I know that a lot of you guys have probably hundreds of student workers in your facilities. We purchased a new software payroll process a couple of months back, and we looked, and we have probably about 170 student workers in that software. So that right there shows us the impact and just what we have going on the front line. So the big thing that we a lot of times forget when we're thinking about the business model is the why. So, and that is developing these students, getting them out there on the front line, and then, like our VP always says, getting them across the stage at graduation. That's the biggest thing for us in Mississippi. That should be the biggest thing for you guys in Pennsylvania, is to see that student success. And that kind of falls in line with the topic that I chose today, the why. And it goes right along the lines with my dissertation. And it is about career readiness and career preparedness. So I'm going to try to share this screen. Let's see. It's a little different than WebEx. We've been using WebEx, I would say, heavily for all of our stuff on campus. So see if I can get this going. I'm going to back up. Sorry about that, guys. Should have had this. I thought I had this back at the beginning. So just kind of hopping right into this. This will kind of go over a training model that we put forth probably about 2.5, 3 years ago. It started with kind of a pilot program. 4 years ago, our director, Laura Walling, she was on a lot of committees with some folks in your area. She knew Steve Young really well. She retired after 30 years. So she was very impactful to me. She helped me get a job in this building after, putting in a lot of resumes and whatnot. And, here a lot of us are today as associate directors, coordinators, even directors. Maybe some have moved on to corporate positions like for Life Fitness, things of that nature. But, looking at this from a research perspective, this goes into my dissertation, and it kind of goes into why we developed this training model. We saw probably when myself and Patrick, the director right now, were promoted to these positions, we had about 3 or 4 people leave us. We had some coordinators going to other jobs. Then we had, to be honest with you, a few folks that were just upset that they didn't get promotional opportunities, or when Laura left, I guess they, didn't want to buy into a new vision. And we realized that at that point, and you guys have probably been at this in some of your facilities, where there was a definite culture change needed. And you need buy-in from the professional staff, and you need buy-in from the students. So we thought that was a necessity to look at some kind of overarching training model. We needed to look at the assessments and evaluations that we were doing for students, because you could even feel the morale with the student staff in the facility. So kind of going along the lines of when I went into my dissertation, this is some of the research that I came up with. And I don't know if you guys have read a lot about George Koo, but he came on campus not too long ago, and that was the theoretical model that I used in my actual dissertation. Then we also looked at studies of on-campus and off-campus employment, and it clearly shows that we're doing something pretty special in rec. It showed that a lot of research on off-campus jobs where there wasn't motivation, students were working too much, there wasn't a buy-in component or mentoring or leadership, they had lower GPAs. Then a lot of the other stuff that I looked at in the research for my dissertation was, hey, we've got to also show VPs, show the campus why we need resources, why we need money to build these larger facilities, why we need money to renovate, things of that nature. I don't know if you guys heard about when, I don't know, Shaquille O'Neal, and then he put some money into LSU, and then LSU got a bigger recreation fee. That's one of our struggles here. We've never gotten a recreation fee. So we fight annually to do everything that we do with our students and to provide our programs and buy equipment from Life Fitness, things of that nature with just one appropriation. So Louisiana State got that huge referendum and student rec fee. They redid the rec center. They got an $85 million lazy river. And you look that up, you're going to find a lot of positive articles on it. You're going to find a lot of negative articles on it. Because, you know, folks are like, hey, why does recreation need this? Why? And then we have to prove the why of the students and what it is that we're doing in our programs. What are we doing to build the students up that come into the facilities? How are we impacting them lifelong? And how are we impacting these students that are working for us? And the last thing that I saw in the research, we always have GPA numbers on folks that participate in intramural sports, sport clubs. We look at different organizations and student affairs and see how well they're doing in classes. But we never really look and ask the students, hey, from these transferable skills you're learning in our facility that Chris Hopkins and everyone else is teaching these students daily, are they ready for the real world? And it's just one of those things that we missed the boat on. So that inspired me. That inspired this whole department to build a new training model, and we called it Team UREC. We realized we needed an engaging departmental training model. We had all these siloed approaches. You know, maybe folks were doing good with their officials trainings. Maybe folks were doing good over here in fitness with ACSM concepts, but we needed something overarching to motivate these kids. When they saw all these pros leave, they didn't know who their head supervisor was. They were just really confused. The culture was down. So I took the bull by the horns and I said, hey, we're going to do something here. Meaningful evaluations. You'll see this came from a very simple rubric. We needed staff incentives. I don't think we had anything like a pay matrix built. We didn't have, I remember at Temple that Steve Young always had like this, he called it the garment program. You know, if you did some good deeds or something, you got a new garment. So he had the TU Rec hoodies. He had all that kind of stuff, the toboggans, the beanies, and man, I wanted all that stuff for Temple. I got most of it because I was a pro, but the students, man, they bought into that. And I realized we didn't have these things here. So any job that we're at, any internship, you know, we're always learning. I learned all this stuff. So just think how we're impacting these students. We did not have trust or relationships with these students at that point 4 or 5 years ago. We needed to speak a common language. We needed a little bit of that student affairs lingo in there. We needed the Mississippi State lingo. We needed a unified approach to approach the customers when they came into the rec. So I'm going to ask you guys this out loud so I can quit talking for just a second. What do you believe are some of the essential criteria that you need in an evaluation or rubric when you're evaluating your student staff? What are some things that we should all overarching be looking for? This doesn't have to be just like for a fitness instructor, an official. What are some things that you think we should have on an evaluation? So, and I don't mind picking on people, so.
I'll go, Jay. I think the most important thing for us is making sure that the things that they're being evaluated are things that are in their job description. Okay. So there's always that tie-in back and forth of what we're asking them. It's unfair to evaluate someone on things that they might not know that they should be doing from the get-go when they sit down in an interview, when those things are reviewed with what the things they need to do on a daily basis as part of their job, is tying that into the actual evaluation, in addition to the more of the softer skills like leadership and things like that when as you kind of grow into supervisor roles, but even still making sure that they connect, that there's a lot of clarity there. Sure.
Anybody else want to add to what Hoppy just shared? And it's okay that I said Hoppy, right?
I've changed it a little bit around what I'm thinking of with our students. I'm looking more at do they feel supported? especially this year. We want them to be able to do their job. We want to make sure that they're learning things at the job. But I think this year, especially, it's important to make sure that they feel supported, that they feel cared about, and that they're kind of bringing that more of a team, a family mentality. I think that's super important this year compared to other years, especially.
That absolutely, that's a perfect segue, Chad. Transition, whatever you want to call it. Hoppy, you nailed it. You nailed it, Chad. We wanted something overarching in this Team UREC. We did not want this to, I guess you could say, push out of the way some kind of technical evaluation like for the Group X instructor or the official, but we wanted motivation, and that's what we sought to do. And I think, we're all in this boat right now with the pandemic. How many of, Dan, you mentioned that the rec was open some, but some of you might not have students back full throttle right now. Am I correct in that?
Yeah,
Is
so
that,
our rec center is open, but not all the students are on campus. A lot of student employees who normally work for us, they're not back on campus. So it's a different feel for sure. And our hours are limited. There's no real programs or intramurals, sport clubs. Our Group X is very limited. It's just a different kind of environment than what students might be used to.
yeah, so I think we're nailing a lot of key words here, and I can honestly say this is to toot my horn here. This is to toot the horn of the model. We did all of this to motivate, number one, and I think in a time of a pandemic, and I saw in your schedule of resources that you had something on mental health. A few weeks ago, we had a student that was, we had to call an emergency meeting. We had to get the behavioral intervention team in with us. We had a student that tried to take their life. So, we were here as pros the other night discussing that a few weeks ago in this pandemic. So this stuff is real. And, the most that we can do is to look at how we're motivating these students. So we built this off of NACE. Has everyone heard of the NACE career competencies or readiness values? That's what we used. And we looked at these comprehensively. And I mean, all of these things fall into any job that we have, whether it's a building supervisor, a head lifeguard, our social media marketing team, somebody out at the fields, Dan, somebody officiating. And we took these and, I'm not saying round square peg, round hole type thing, but we made sure that these went into everything of the Team UREC acronym that we built. And we looked at these career readiness competencies, and we built teamwork, self-efficacy, adaptability, mentoring, unity, respect, excellence, and communication. That is Team UREC. That is an 8-month process. And that is a portion or a component of this model that we put into every single in-service that we have monthly. It does not matter what functional area you are in the building. This is a mandatory thing for supervisors. And for that mandatory piece, it's the idea that we're going to get this buy-in. We're working towards buy-in from these students, and we're working towards that common language. So that was the first part. And it was built on a simple evaluation rubric. I'll touch on that a little bit. It's easy. It's a 1 to 5 rating. They get to pretty much talk to you in a qualitative box underneath the ratings. So we have a training on that. We make sure that there is a component in every in-service. So they do a pre-assessment. So anybody that's new on their new hire onboarding or checklist, they're going to do this rubric. They're going to do a pre-evaluation, kind of where they are on these components, where they view themselves. Everybody's going to look at this differently. And one of the biggest things, I'll go ahead and go forward here. I'll share any of these files, any of these PowerPoints from the trainings, et cetera, with you guys afterwards. Always just like you guys would at a conference or something. It's like say, hey, we got this from such and such. So we wanted a tool that was easy to understand. It has the definitions under the competency. No repercussions. What I mean by that is this is not a discipline-based type of evaluation. The student, if it gets to that point at the end of the semester, we're wondering why that student is still working for us. So this is a growth model. And then alongside this, when you're doing this post evaluation of the Team UREC rubric, you should also be doing that one for the official, the group exercise instructor. You should have that technical based evaluation, so to speak, sitting there alongside with that. But we always do this Team UREC one. So somebody putting a 1 on there and maybe still just being at like a 2 at the end of the year is not a negative. And that's something we have to preach to the staff. It's about giving yourself room to grow, because, you know, these things can have a lot of, you know, disparity in it. If a student's like, oh, I'm perfect, and then at the end of the semester, oh, I'm perfect. So we really try to impress that point of, hey, this is about growth. Now, some are going to come in with different knowledge, skill sets. We have some students come in that it's maybe their first job in Campus Rec, first job ever. If you can believe that they never had a job through high school. I was working when I was, I think, 14 or 15, but you got to think about that. They're all going to have a different perception, perspective. There's really nothing wrong with that, but letting them know that they're not going to get in trouble for a 1 or a 2 and not showing some kind of extravagant growth through the semester of the year. Then the qualitative feedback portion, we do not let them turn that in unless they put something in those boxes. We want them to critically think and put something down about their growth, be able to verbalize it, be able to write something down. These students are lacking that tremendously today. Just being able to have a conversation like this. So we do that. It's a constant. I wanted to share with you some of the things that we got from each component from random students. Teamwork. I never realized that the different areas had to work so much together, even though they are separate. We have a 200,000 square foot facility here. There's 6 or 7 functional areas. These students over these 4 years, they bridge gaps. They go hang out together. They don't think of it as just facilities and fitness. I know we would all be lying if we said we haven't seen beef between different areas of students and different areas in the facility, right? You've probably seen that over the years. So this right here, this simple training model has helped bridge those gaps, because we push the students to do this, to get outside of their area, to shadow in other areas. They've started cross-training more. They want to work in various areas. Self-efficacy. Some of these kids that never had that job before, they leave here with a promotion, a lead trainer job, a building supervisor job, and they're interviewing for graduate assistantships or maybe even coordinator jobs after this being their first job. Confidence. They never had to enforce a policy before. They never had to get in front of any kind of conflict. My goodness, they sure weren't, set up to be an official when they first came in. And, we know the development that you have to put into that. Those kids get yelled at every single night. So for them to say this, hey, I'm not scared to go up to somebody anymore, from them being in a shell. A year later, they're attacking things on the floor. And the kid said, now it's my floor. How motivational is that? How encouraging is that to you as a supervisor? In the evening, so many things can happen on my shift, and I am well prepared and rarely have to call a pro. I'm not saying we don't want the phone call when something crazy happens, but if we can have that trust in every single student that's in our building when we leave, that, man, we've got the right ones on shift. I can go home, I can take a break. I'm not worrying about the wreck. I know we're always on call, but if you have a young staff up there and you don't know where they are with that trustworthiness, that can weigh on your mind. So I was scared to give tasks. I had to push them and delegate more. I used to try and do all the tasks myself and let new staff just sit there. Now the staff come to me for guidance and just want to talk. So they put that under mentoring, under the qualitative piece. How cool is that? Then we go into unity. When I was new, I just wanted to work my shift and get a paycheck. It took me a while, but now I see the importance of subbing for people and caring about others too. I know that a lot of times you'll get these new ones on and you'll have some areas, some issues in your staff areas where people just aren't subbing. If you have that team together, that team cohesion, that unity, you've worked hard at that team building, you'll start to see that transpire. And that's what this student was saying. And it goes to respect. We have a lot of international students here. We've made it affordable for them, and we have one of the largest international student populations here at Mississippi State University in Starkville, Mississippi, a land grant school just like Penn State. And that's important here, that we have that respect, that communication line, and we're listening closely to those patrons, our retirees, our older patrons, and that's what this student was saying here. It goes a long way to be respectful and to listen more to the questions and concerns. Excellence. Until I was promoted to shift supervisor, I didn't understand why my supervisor was always pushing me to do a little more. I've started to understand doing the small things better. The last one, guys, is communication. They make us do so many emergency and risk management scenarios. It's not the most fun, but if someone had a heart attack on my shift, I get why we are doing it, and we have to be prepared to communicate and respond fast. About 10 years ago, we did have a patron have a massive heart attack and die in our facility. And we can bring that up when we're doing these different skills and whatnot. So those things are real. And you've got to realize that could happen on a 18 to 20-year-old shift. And the communication, the buy-in, them understanding, the chains of command, the proper documentation, we teach them those small details. And then it really matters when it comes down to that communication, getting the powers that be involved on campus, who they can talk to, who they cannot talk to after the situation, getting a quick response from emergency response on campus, our campus police, medics in the area. So all that could fall into this communication component, a simple competency that we teach. How could you make your student staff trainings more engaging? Anything come to mind? So we've just talked about a lot really fast, and maybe you're thinking about that right now. Maybe you've been thinking about that with COVID, your facilities reopening. What are some things that might be going across your mind right now to get them re-engaged, inspired when they come back into that facility? Have you guys thought about that? Maybe some kind of social distancing team builder, something that's not virtual. What has crossed your mind? I know I hadn't put everybody to sleep, have I, Hopkins? You guys don't have to have anything. Dan, can you think of anything there?
I just think of like ways to try and engage our staff a little bit more. Like sometimes we have our supervisor meetings, kind of ask each supervisor to like talk about one incident or one thing they were kind of unsure of, just so there could be more like examples of what actually goes on shift and like how everybody would deal with it. Just kind of get people like, engaged or talking about or thinking back of like something that went on during their shift, instead of kind of just, going through an agenda, hitting a couple bullet points. Really just trying to get one situation out of 12 supervisors, kind of gets everybody moving, almost like side conversation started, just, like a little bit of a flow.
Anybody else want to add on that for Dan before we get moving forward?
We used Kahoot this year for the first time, so we made a little game into it, and everybody's competitive. So that's kind of how we checked to see if people were retaining any of the information. And we bought a couple, $5 gift cards to the coffee house right around the corner that kind of incentivized people. And it was not a whole lot of extra work for us. There was incentives, and the students thought it was they liked playing too. So people like that this year.
I'm trying to think of what it was called. It was something that hooks into our smart TV, et cetera. It's something box, but our outdoor adventures coordinator just bought it. And it has like a whole gaming system built into it, like the Kahoot thing that you're mentioning, Chad, but you can buy it for rec centers, anything. And it's like a gaming system. Remember the trivia cart that Steve made us use at all the events, Chris? So this is like high tech. This goes straight into like your smart TV. We don't have to roll a cart and some buzzers to all the events, but this one, I'll have to get that and I'll send that to you guys. We just bought it. We haven't even used it yet, but she did a lot of research on this, but it's some kind of system, some kind of software that you can plug into all your trainings and whatnot. So I think these things are important right now. And we've been trying to be as creative as we can, even with social distancing right now. So I want to show you guys just a couple of the training examples, and I picked teamwork. And I picked Unity, I believe, is the training. And this would be like in August. And then I think the other one was January, based on the Team UREC acronym. So we want to make sure that these things are not long-winded, that you'll lose the attention span really quickly. So I don't think we have any of these little PowerPoints that we put into these, that myself and Stephen Connect, our comp sports coordinator, he and I are kind of the team that developed these. But what we try to do is we make sure there's some kind of icebreaker in each one of these. Get them up, moving around the room, talking to each other. And this is always a good one, just names, whatnot, doing something cheesy like that towards the beginning of the year when you've got a lot of new staff hires after you've had a big retreat. Then you're really trying to get that cohesion within your team or your unit. So we always try to put that within these monthly these competency modules. So in teamwork, we had that on the first slide where we kind of did a team builder. Then it just trying to kind of goes into some of the things I already talked about, like culture. We talked about that. Just motivating the team, who's the different leadership styles, things of that nature, everyone playing a role. Then it already goes to conclusion. So this should only take up 10 to 15 minutes of your in-service. Then you get into the meat and potatoes of what it is that you do in your area. We don't want to burn the staff out on these. We want to make sure that it continues that common language, but we want to make sure that it's really quick and impactful when we have it in these in-services monthly. So, and like I said, we make it a mandatory thing that supervisors put it in. Then we move all the way forward past respect, excellence, communication. We get to January. So then we go into unity. If we were in teamwork before, we've had that time to grow over that whole semester. Then if you get a few new folks hired for the new year, but you've already got some growth and leadership, you go right into unity. So all this was strategic when we came up with that acronym. And, we start this one off with a bang. Has everybody seen the movie Coach Carter? Yes, exceptional movie, the one with Samuel L. Jackson. So we played that one for him where I think it was Cruz. I forgot what he got in trouble for. He got in some big trouble, if you remember Samuel L. Jackson in that movie. I think he was tasked with like 2,000 burpees and sit-ups or something in that movie if he wanted to play again. And it just showed he was just fired up, and he's like, I'm not quitting this team. So he took his backpack off. He started doing the movements, and then the whole team just one by one started hopping in with him. And they just added on, added in cumulatively. And, just showing something like that to get the staff inspired. I know that's hard to do, but showing something that's relatable. So used a lot of videos in these, just quick videos. Then we get into some discussion once again, and common language. We try to put this in every single one of them. Some of these things will be repeat in every single one of our competencies to make sure that they're hearing this over and over, because you have to do that. It's just like an athletic team. You see these coaches, it's like Temple Tough when it was Matt Rule. I paid attention to that. He had buy-in. You see this at various, you have to have that in your clubhouse, in your rec, and that's something we preach to in here, and we made it real. We made it very real here, and GAs have even built welcome packets in their areas for their staff, and we have a Team UREC shirt that they get. Then and I'll talk about an incentive program in just a moment, but you kind of mentioned a few of these. What was it about the coffee shop or whatnot, Chad? So we do dog bones, Mississippi State Bulldogs, dog bones. So how fitting, DAWG, you can't spell it right correctly. So we call it dog bones, and that we nominate these students. It's kind of like your top leaders, and you can nominate up to 2 student workers in your areas per month for dog bones, for doing something, I guess you could say, above and beyond within the Team UREC model. And they all get a smoothie. We have a juice bar in the facility through Aramark. Used to be, I think it was Sodexo, now it's Aramark, but a buddy of mine built this smoothie place from the ground up. He was a graduate here, and they get a free smoothie. And then they get put in the running for also the student employee of the month and get a special parking place at the rec. And that's pretty cool. You get to park out there by the director and the associate director, the student of the month. So we it doesn't have an official sign out there, but we put a cone out there, Dan. So we make it something for them. And then they also get put into the student affairs, student employee of the month thing, and they get to attend the banquet at the end of the year, which I don't know when the next one of those is going to be for student affairs, but they get to go. The VP calls them and invites them to the banquet if they're one of our monthlies, and then they get put into that divisional. And if they win the divisional overall for the year out of all student employees of the month in the division, the VP gives them a $500 scholarship, and they get to come to that banquet, like I mentioned. So we've built this thing. And I'll talk about a student. So success on things like this can get you more work in the Division II. So just know that. And that's kind of what happened to us. So Dog Bones, staff garment store, we built a pay matrix that was very clear and transparent on roles, promotions, and different tier levels where students fall in terms of where they are and where they can grow or where they can cross train. So there's nothing hidden there. They know the pay rates, and they know all these promotional opportunities that is in their new hire, Patrick, Lord, that's my director's name, packet. Smoothies, never lose with a smoothie, and the shirts and whatnot, the Team UREC shirt. We don't need the toboggans or the beanies as much as you guys, but the few cold months that we have, those were a very big hit. So have you guys had to do a lot of assessment lately? Has that been the hot topic and trend in student affairs at your institutions? Yes, no, maybe so. I remember Ann Wilkinson was all about that when I was there.
Temple just went through a major accreditation, so a lot of the stuff we were doing has been kind of filtered up. But Temple's campus rec is no longer in student affairs. We're kind of an anomaly. We transitioned out about, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago, and we report directly to the chief operating officer, which is really good in a lot of ways. And certainly from a vantage point of, usually you're either in student affairs or you're reporting to athletics, and we're neither. So we're in a good situation.
So you're not having to share facilities. It's probably easier to show your need. I know this is important for us guys that are in student affairs. I know we always have to fight hard to show this and data, especially when you're talking about your students. And when we started this Team UREC thing a few years ago, we've consistently taken those evaluations. We've done a longitudinal study. We've linked it to GPA. We've linked it to retention in terms of students staying on board here, et cetera, to graduation. So we continue to do that. And why not? If it's something in-house, I used it for my PhD. So this is where I started back in 2001, too, then the Temple. So it was something that was something I was passionate about. So if you have the data there, and that's what we try to preach around the department. Assessment is not rocket science. It's usually sitting right there before you. We do so many programs, and it could just be, asking your patrons something, doing a quick focus group. Grab some of your student leaders and get some pizza. I know there's a lot of pizza up there in Philly. So get some pizza or some pretzels. I missed that. I'm gonna have to come up just for that. And get them in a room, give them pizza, and they'll start talking about leadership and anything else, or what makes them upset in the rec center. So do that, do these focus groups, turn that into your assessment coordinator, get your VPs excited about what you're doing, show them the need. We've done this with Team UREC, and it is turned into more. So this was the name of my dissertation right here: More Than a Student Worker Job, Transferable Skills Matter and Career Readiness. I told you guys that was the gap in the research. We always talk about GPA retention. We never show the why or how we're preparing them. So that's what I looked at. We talked about, I was able to use 78 of like 120 of these initial evaluations. They forget to do one thing on it, or, students that left halfway through the year. I had criteria in the dissertation. It had to be a full year. So got about 80 students there. And we looked at several things, learning outcomes, but the biggest one that we were looking at was, are they more prepared for the real world? And we had some pretty significant data on that. I had to look at transfers also. I don't know if you guys have a lot of community college students up there, junior colleges in Pennsylvania, but it's a big system in the Southeast, especially with some rural areas, what we call the Delta, a lot of rural farming areas in the middle of Mississippi. And that's where you see like the statistics that you see on Mississippi. It's not from the college towns, the coast, or Jackson or Hattiesburg. It's from, those areas. So, looking at those transfer students that come from those different socioeconomic backgrounds, and they've learned a lot and they've had buy-in in these. If you see here on the slide, the biggest thing that they grew in was unity. So a lot of times those transfer students come here maybe a lot more mature, very knowledgeable in some of these competencies and transferable skills, but you see them grow so much in unity because they haven't been in these large groups, like a freshman to whatever your student was when they got immersed in a 4-year institution. So we saw the impact of our model on transfer students, which was really cool because there was a community college leadership component in my program. And then if you look over here to the right, left, our natives, the ones that have been here the whole way, they see their biggest growth, and that should be valuable to you guys and what you do daily with these students: confidence and self-efficacy and mentoring. That's what we want. We want our students to be able to grow, the new ones that we hire, to where we're not out there micromanaging. We want them to be able to lead trainings, us have that trust in them, and then for them to be more confident when they're officials, supervisors. Confidence, that's huge. I took a lot of pride in that I saw that as some of our biggest growth factors. All of the inclusive surveys with all students, not including transfer, the supervisors, all that, it was all significant data. What was not significant, and that's a good thing, is when we looked at the variance between students post surveys and then their supervisor post surveys. You want to see some variance there, but you want to see those closely related. You don't want to see the supervisor and the student that far off in terms of their growth. So the weird one there that we saw the students see themselves the biggest difference or higher than the supervisors was excellence. So I kind of found that kind of funny, but all the others were really close in terms of where the supervisors put them on their post scores and where the students saw themselves. So that means that we're in tune with our students. We're paying attention to their growth. We're getting out there on the floor. We're having conversations. We're not just sitting in our office. We're getting out there and we're being invested in those students' lives. I know that we have administrative roles. I know that we're in the office sometimes, but anytime you get that opportunity to go out there and talk to a student, I encourage you to do that. If you want to grow a culture, you've got to do that. We've got to put the desk job to the side. Just get out there. A 5-minute conversation right now in this pandemic is incredible. When I told you about what we dealt with a couple of weeks ago. Here's some recommendations that I put forth from the research that I gathered in my study. This is not a limited thing to student affairs, guys. I don't know, if you look up Iowa Grow, they built a program like this and it went campus wide. The president has students doing modules like this, like the Team UREC. They have to do it when they come on board. So they have like a Team UREC person on campus. I don't think we have the resources here at the rec, but they put somebody in a coordinator role like that, and they lead this transferable skill initiative and modules. And every student that comes on board, I guess through Blackboard, Canvas, they take these modules and they have a timeline of when they do it. Longitudinal study, we'll keep doing this. We'll keep doing this as long as I'm here, as long as there's buy-in, and we'll keep showing this data to the VPs. I want to break out at some point and start looking just at, like, I guess you could say, students that are in leadership categories, first generation student. I want to start looking at various, I guess you could say, sectors of students when we look at our numbers on these evaluations as well. The division bought into this. And like I said, you sometimes are a victim of your own success. The VP put me over a student engagement team, and we had to look at ways to better, I guess you could say, recognize students, motivate students. That's where the banquet that I mentioned earlier, the Divisional Student Employee of the Month came from, the scholarship, the lunch, all of that was our recommendations. And then with that, the VP asked us to do, and this was exhausting, so it took us about 2 years to build this, we had to do interactive modules in Canvas. And we had to do like a practical piece where the student goes and meets with a mentor on every one of these modules. And it was kind of like Team UREC. We just came up with different competencies from NACE, and we called it the Maroon Lead Training Modules. You guys are cherry up there, Hoppy. We're maroon here. So we did Maroon Lead Training Modules, and the VP put us to work on that. So sometimes you are a victim of that. But hey, we've had 600 and something students enrolled in that course. We set it up to where it's self-graded, all that. They get the badges to where they can put like on a LinkedIn resume. And then they get like a lapel pin and a certificate a virtual certificate, and we give them a frame and a plaque whenever they graduate from it. So it became some work, but then when the VPs see that, you can bet that when you're next in line for needing some money at the rec center, they're going to remember these initiatives, this effort. Postgraduate evaluation process. I recommend for practitioners to do some kind of study. If they have some kind of training model like this at their institution, to reach out to graduates when they're employees at their job, probably about a semester later, and kind of reassess them on these competencies and see where they are and have them answer how valuable this was in, I guess, their first 6 months of employment at their professional, their new gig. So to show that as well, that could be monumental. Conclusion, like I said, we had to build the Maroon Lead training models. You need department buy-in for this. You need consistent and clear communication. So anytime you have a meeting, you need to say this departmentally, hey, this is what we're doing. You make sure you're doing your team UREC stuff at the end services. Make sure you're doing your evals. You need to pop into area training sometimes. If you know officials training is going on or supervisors, and you can pop your head in and talk about team UREC or whatever you call it, do that. If you can pop into a fitness and service, you know, make yourself human at some of those things when you're the associate director or director. I think I already kind of covered this next one. Models such as Team UREC may be used in various campus areas for tracking growth. Like I said, the Iowa Grow one turned into a professional job, a team with more positions on campus, and it was expected for every single student at Iowa to take this. And if you look that up, it even has like a copyright or trademark beside it. That's how big that became. So they're published. They've probably been in a lot of research articles. Dr. Koo, George Koo, he talks about them in all of his articles, and it's a big deal. So what are some ideas that you have for getting your staff motivated as they return in a pandemic? I think we kind of already mentioned some of those things. It's going to take some creativity for you guys. I encourage you to look at the creative piece, how you can make these things more engaging. Really look at, like you said earlier, Hopkins, make sure it's connected to what they do. Make sure you build something that tackles all of these transferable skills and what they need to grow in, especially if NACE says this is what they need to grow in for career readiness. So we built this to where it doesn't matter what their degree is in. We know they're in rec. Doesn't mean they're trying to be a lifetime rec professional. Half of them may still leave and realize that, you know, they might not have been to a NERSA conference. You never know that. But if we have them prepared, even if they're going to be a meteorologist, an engineer, something in ag for you Penn State folks, whatever it may be, are we doing our due diligence? So that's what I ask you to think about this. It's an incredible time right now. Mental health is real. Creativity is real when so much is virtual. We've got quite a big task in front of us, but we've had fun with this. We feel like we are doing our best in a critical time like this, and I encourage you guys to do the same. So that's what I have for this presentation. Questions or thoughts that y'all want to share as a group. I hope this kicks off PERSA pretty well. I hope y'all are motivated, because I see a lot of roundtables. I see the group fitness thing, but don't forget the student piece in your week. Don't forget to be intentional, not just talking about programming and we need to do this in the rec, but don't forget the why. And it starts with the frontline workers, and then accommodating all these other students that come in for a workout or to be involved in something engaging in your facilities to help them right now, help them be better people, better humans, and to graduate. So that's what I have. Life Fitness, I hope you're pleased.
Thank you, Jason. Are you going to be able to send or share the slides with us, just so that way we can make sure?
I'll send any of this stuff that you guys want. If you guys want any of the Team UREC stuff, any of my colleagues here in PERSA, if you guys want the slides. Dan, did you record it?
Yeah.
I did record it, yes.
Excellent. So yeah, so Jeremy grabbed me at lunch a few weeks ago, my rep. He's like, hey man, Lon and whoever, he's like, they need a speaker. And I was like, gosh, I just finished presenting this stuff. And I was like, okay. So I was glad to do it, and definitely glad to see one of my old colleagues and talk to
We're
you
happy to
guys.
give you the practice. It's time to practice presenting, so.
Yeah, I had like a few days, so I threw this together, man. So hopefully it was good enough. Hope
Yeah,
it's timely.
we really appreciate it on short notice jumping in and helping us
Yeah.
out. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We'll look forward to the next one.
Man, you guys have a good week, and get those students motivated, and hopefully toast a cold Yingling with you guys at a conference at some point. I'm tired of this. I just want
Ready for you, Jay.
I just want to toast a cold beer. So I'll drop my
Cold Yingling and the
professional-
cheesesteak, Jay.
Yeah,
Oh, and
man.
a soft pretzel, right, Jay?
Dude, you have no idea. I just want to not be virtual conference for a little bit and see you guys. So thanks a lot. Take care, and go Persa, right? Tell AW that I talked about student development
I will.
and an assessment on her behalf today. Okay.
Thank you, Jason.
She laid the
Definitely appreciate
foundation,
it.
right, Jay?
Yeah. Dan, shoot me an email and I can respond back to any files, PowerPoint, Team Urec stuff, anything you guys want. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Jay. Good seeing you, bud.
You too,
All
man.
right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.